Okay, here we go. We're starting phase 2 of this class, and I have to admit, gotta say, that presentation we just did, I'm really happy with it. Like, I think God's like helping us. I'm sorry Grant's not here, but that thing he threw in at the end. So this is like very good. I'm going to try and retain this and use it, really incorporate it into the class. But I think we nailed it. Like, I'm very, very happy, and thanks for being here. But I am convicted, and I have to just go public with you now. It's like I'm very convicted because I think I'm supposed to be enforcing like a no food whatsoever policy. So don't enjoy your food and eat your candy bar, but I got to go back to my boss and just tell him I'm really having problems enforcing this, and just I got to throw myself on the mercy of Pastor O'Connell and see what happens. So things could be changed in this class. Just fasten your seatbelts, but we got a few more hours of grace here. But it's like, if this is a policy, we got to do it. If it's not, or I don't know how that's going to go. Okay, thank you. Okay, now my next. Just give me one moment here. I just want to make some notes before I lose this. Okay, I'll remember that now. But this, I can guarantee you that you'll want to know those things for the midterm, like everything we're talking about. Okay, now, the next thing related but different that we want to talk about is information sharing or confidentiality within the table of organization. And I think all of us would think of ourselves as confidential. We don't think of ourselves as gossips, but we wanted to just maybe put out some principles or some guidelines and then talk a little more along the lines of how information can be misused within an organization. What I would say is that maybe if you want to go back to a biblical principle, might be that all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. Okay, all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. And I just think about my own life. Okay, if my life is an open book, okay, if I have integrity, in different areas of my life, I'm not ashamed of anything that I'm doing, why would it be that I would not want certain things communicated, even though I'm not ashamed of them? I can stand before God with a clean conscience. Why would certain parts of my life be off limit? And just as I was sort of thinking about that and pondering that question today, really what I'm sort of concluding on it is I'm sort of thinking this way, is that each of us, we have grace, we have a gift from God, we have a grace, we have a capacity. And there's certain things that God has given me to do that are mine to do. I was just had a good conversation with Chad here. He's got a Christian country band that's God's maybe starting to move and do some things. We're very excited about that. He's a musician, okay? I'm not a musician, okay? Do I know some things about music? Yes, but I'm definitely not a musician. I would be foolish before God to be pursuing music because it's not what's been given to me. Okay, I've taken music as far as it can go in my life, and it's not going any further. I'm happy with that. And we all have gifts and capacities here. And I would say that related to that, I think that included in that same thought, even though maybe it's a stretch, but maybe it's not, along with that, there's certain knowledge that is edifying for me, that God has given for me, and it is mine to bear. But other knowledge simply is not mine to bear, and that if it comes to me, it will be a detriment to my spiritual life and to my functioning and to my capacity, because it will be giving me things to think about that I cannot be thinking about, because I can't do it effectively. And there's this, if you've read the book, it's either The Hiding Place or it's My Father's House, Corrie ten Boom. she talks about her childhood. And I don't know how old she is, 10, 11, somewhere in that 9, I'm not sure how old she is. But she goes to her father, and she asks her dad, tell me about the facts of life, you know. And he doesn't answer her. And she's like puzzled why he doesn't answer that question. But she's taken a trip with him. And it's either like at the train station or time to go to the train station. And he's got this, this heavy bag that is packed. I don't know how much it weighs, 70 pounds, whatever it weighs. And he tells his daughter to go pick up the bag and put it on the train or whatever it is. So she goes, says, Dad, I cannot lift this bag. It is too heavy for me. Okay? And he answers her, that is exactly why I cannot answer the question you asked me earlier, because that knowledge, if you have it, will be too much for you to bear. And I don't, in a way, it seems kind of funny. It's like I got nothing to hide. I could share my whole life with you in one sense, and vice versa. But in another sense, there's things about my life that I don't share, won't share, and I don't think ever will be shared. I think there's things that passes within my family that is family business. There's things that pass between my wife that is ours forever. There's things that pass between you and God, that's your fellowship with Him, and it's just no one else enters into that place. And so I think we sort of look at it sort of like from a life point of view, that the way things that come to us, things that are part of my job, things that I know, I do not communicate. And the way I say it for starters, if we go back to that diagram we had, that of the body side and the organizational side, for starters, I would say that things that come to me, information that comes to me just from body life in general, I'm not going to carry that into the organization, okay? And then the things that I learn in the organization as part of my job, I'm not going to take that outside of the organization and share it with the body, okay? Because it is not profitable, it is not appropriate, and even though it's hard for me to describe why beyond what I would just say, I sure know the feeling, the sense I have of it when this stuff is flying around, stuff that I don't want to hear or that I don't want to talk about. So like we're sitting in staff meetings in the finance office, and maybe here's how it would go. We're working within the department, or we're working with some other department. I'm going to give a non-real example, but I needed certain information today when I called down to the desk at Greater Grace Christian Academy so that we can do our job in the finance office related to a certain family, and they refused to give it to me. Okay, but I did not get that information. Now, if someone else in the room says, oh, geez, I was talking to Jen Lynch last night. She had a fight with her husband. She's probably having a bad day. You know what I'm saying? Or like that type of thing would be like, I do not want it. That is like irrelevant information to me. That is like not helping me in the least. You came to that information. It may be confidential, whatever it is. I don't want to be hearing it, and it is of zero value to me, most likely zero. I want to find out if we're asking that desk for information they shouldn't be giving us, we don't want to ask for it. And if we're asking information that they should be giving us, I got to call Mr. Dunbar and I got to get him to talk to his staff and tell them to do their job. And not that I would do it in those terms, but it's that real. We cannot let those things come into the organization. And then likewise, and maybe more obvious, what goes out. Certainly in every employee we bring into the finance office, when you're coming into this finance office, you are going to see everything. You're going to know what everybody on this plaza is being paid. You're going to know the families that are having problems paying their bills. The stuff I deal with on my desk, which is like I cover all the legal stuff, and it's just there's things that come across my desk and come through, like even even to this level. It's like, Pam Hetrick, some call comes in and she passes it on to Pastor Taggart. I don't want her telling people who just called Pastor Taggart, because sometimes that, well, why are they calling Pastor? That can be like, people think that way, you know what I'm saying? And it can bother people. So just in general, anything I learn on my job, it just doesn't leave the job. It doesn't go anywhere. Now I know I've asked, we've given some real life illustrations in this room. We've tried to, we try to give real life examples because they're relevant and they're very interesting, but we always try to do it in such a way that we protect the innocent and the guilty. We're not, spilling the beans about stuff out here. And then just like you can ask my wife, what I did today. You could just run the experiment. What bothers your husband about his job? She does not know. Part of that is just, part of it. I do not go home and number one, I got to cover my wife. She's not built or designed or has the calling to bear what goes across my desk in the course of a day. I'm the guy that God's gifted to, for this season, to take that. And one of these days, I won't, I don't know, years, who knows, decades, I won't have this job anymore, and then I will not be receiving this information, and whoever comes after me is not going to give me this information, and I wouldn't want it because I can't handle it. But my wife sure can't handle it. So that's principle number one. Know what you're dealing with, and what goes out, and what you do not communicate. Now the second thing is, I just wanted to go over. Now I would say maybe a sort of I don't know if it's an exception, but if I'm just trying to think. Example that comes to mind. In the last 6 months, Paul Nye, IT department head, he has rolled out a new phone system on the property. Everybody who works on this property knows about the new phones, okay? You got a new phone in dispatch, you got a new phone at your desk today, I got one on my desk. I don't know if anybody else works here or not, but to have seen those things. This new phone system has will save Greater Grace World Outreach, probably on the order of $20,000 to $30,000 a year. It's like awesome. It's like very important. It's like a huge step forward, and we need, in terms of what we're dealing with, this money is like very, very, very important to us. So thank God we go public with that. Okay, we have the freedom to share these things that are edifying. So, what's the difference between that information that I just put out there and the other information I'm talking about? And I'm just not sure I can give you a good definition of what the difference is. But it's almost like I know it when I see it, but it's like there's certain things that are business-wide, body-wide, company-wide that we can gather around and talk about and be happy about. And then there's other things that are within the department and just are going to stay there. And I don't think I can give you a better description of that other than let all things be done for edification. And when in doubt, don't say a word. Just don't say a word. Now, why do we not say a word? At best, we're keeping other people from hearing something that is not edifying to them. That's the best thing you can say about confidentiality. But there's like the darker side of confidentiality that, again, I think we hit a little bit of it during the last class, but I want to go over it a little more. And we talked, last hour about people that, walk around with, they want to gain power or gain authority in the organization, and information is a way that this can really be done. And I'll just give you an example. In the finance office, we have all the numbers. We got all the facts, you know what I'm saying? And I have it I don't exercise this power because I'm not, I hope I'm not, I don't think I am. But it's like I could, because we have all the numbers and no one can get them from us without, it really kind of going through us, I could use these numbers. If I wanted things to go a certain way, I could put out information that would support my point of view and hide information that would not support I could manipulate the facts to make things go a certain way. And we really have, we've come a long way in that. Like in the last 5 years, there's no department heads in this room, but department heads get, monthly reports. It was never that way before. Why or why not, I don't care. But I'm just saying department heads know what their budget is. It used to be a situation where department heads were like beggars. Can I get money for this? No. How come? You can't afford it. And after a while, that answer gets kind of old. It's kind of a bummer. You know what I'm saying? Well, you can afford, millions of dollars of other things. How come you can't afford this? Because we can't. And it puts that person in, really, in my opinion, in a demeaning situation. It's like at that point, there is no conversation. We were talking about that. The conversation's over. Pastor Taggart says we can't afford it. We can't afford it. Like, what's that based on? Where's that coming from? What if I save money over here? And that's so we have changed that. We have monthly reports going out to department heads. We have offerings. For a long time, offerings, that information was really limited to Pastor Schaller and us in the finance office. And then we started publishing that information, what I'm saying? And we would send out the report every month to certain people. And now with the I don't know if I can do this on public television here, but with the wonderful world of shareable Google documents, the stuff goes right into the shared Google document, and the trustees view it, Pastor Schaller views it, and it's out there. It's just, the information is out there now, so people don't have to come to Pastor Taggart anymore to ask what the offerings were. You know what I'm saying? And now, if I were evil and insecure, that could bother me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, I don't know. This information has to go through me. No one gets this till I see it. You know what I'm saying? And I could manipulate it. I could hold it. I could do stuff. That'd be important to me. Or I can do my job, which is to give information to the organization so the organization can make decisions. And it's in the one sense, if I'm interested in amassing some sort of personal power, I do it one way. But if I'm interested in doing my job and helping the organization go forward, I do it the other way. So these are just one example that came immediately to mind of how people can use information in the wrong way. So we can use it to gain power. Okay? I can use it to damage or demean somebody. Okay, there's a guy in the organization I don't like. Why don't I like him? Because I don't know. He did something that went against me. He didn't like my ideas, or I'm not a friend of his, or I think he's dumb, or what's he doing here? So I find out things about him, and I start talking that way. And I'm just going to say this. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it, but say it the right way here. I have it in me. I hate to say it, but at times over the years, I have it in me at times people will bother me and I'll say things about them. I'm sorry to confess that in front of you all here, but that's just the way it is. And to the credit of the people who work over me, it's like I cannot get them to bite onto that stuff. It's like that, I don't, I'm saying when I come out with that stuff, it's like blank face, and we are not going to fellowship with that person, with you, around that information about that person. That is impossible, Pastor Taggart, that you would take this and make this person lower in our eyes. And now on the good side, okay, say something good about myself. Years ago, I'm trying to, I got to change the names to protect the innocent and the guilty here, but I know here's what it is. I was, an individual removed me from a position. Let me leave it at that, okay? And I was talking to a person over me in this organization. This is a long, long time ago, this conversation, before most of you were born, so don't try and think about it. But a long time ago, and the person over me in the organization was saying, is it possible that this person made this, like removed you from that position because they were jealous of you? And I said, you know what? God removed me from that position. You know, and that honestly, that was my conviction about it. It was a painful transition, but I know God was in it. And I would not even respond in that situation. I'm like really happy about that. And then another situation, I was in an affiliate ministry. I was at home base visiting, and someone in authority said to me, you know, so how's Pastor so-and-so doing? I'm hearing some complaints. And my answer was, you know what, Pastor so-and-so is a gift from God to this church. That was that, and I'm like happy about that. So I just have to say that so you don't, I don't know why I said that, but you know what I mean. So this is how we want to be communicating. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if I can ask this question, but it's a two-part question. The first part is it possible for you to go over a department head to let someone go in that department? And the second part of that question is it healthy, is it unhealthy in an administrative way for any church universally to have that structure that way, because that kind of limits the authority of the department head and gives them insecurity in that position?
Yeah. And okay, so here's just to make sure I understand the question. We've got, you know, sort of a chain of command, table of organization here. We've got departments, and just the example you're talking about, I've got the Learning Center. I supervise Sue Viator. Pastor Lange supervises me. Pastor Schaller supervises Pastor Lange. Board of Trustees, Board of Elders. That's how it goes, okay? So to make sure I got your question, is it possible for Pastor Taggart to walk in the Learning Center and remove someone, fire somebody? Okay, just very specifically, no one on this property is hired or removed without the Chief Executive Officer, Pastor Schaller, having a shot at that decision, okay? It would be very rare for us to hire someone in a department without the department head approving of it, and it would be very rare for us to let someone go from a department without the department head knowing about it and being on board the decision. You may have some cases where we've got people with varying levels of management ability, okay? And that we think that we need to step in and help them substantially in the hiring process because they've have a track record of bad hires. That has happened, and it could happen, and it's our decision, ultimately Pastor Schaller and the leadership, for the protection of the organization, okay? And then the same thing on the firing side. One specific example that I think you might support, Shahan, we might have someone down in the organization, and maybe that person is out committing like adultery or something, okay, or fornication. The leadership finds out about it. We pull that person out of that slot in the department and we let them go, and we never tell the department head why we did it, okay? So the department head can say, hey, what are you doing to me? You're demeaning me as a department head. You're not respecting me. You got to trust us in that situation. So we've had a few trust us over the years, and then in other cases it's a covering where the department head, because of love for the person and investment, they don't want to make that decision. And we said, look, we got to make a change here, and then when we finally make the change, everything's better off. So I know what you're saying, but ultimately, I can't. We're all under authority, and I'm not like the king of my own department. I got a lot of say, but not final say in what goes on. Okay, so that was a little bit of a detour there. Is that okay? Okay, so I'm going to misuse information. Yes, Aniko.
Could Pastor Schaller fire someone?
Yes.
So he could just make a decision and...
Yes.
Okay.
Never has that I'm aware of. I don't remember him ever doing that. It's always a team decision. But again, why would he do that?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it just came up in my mind. That
Yeah,
could
yeah.
he do that, like without the department head? And
Yeah. But over on Shahan, you just messed me up. Say your name. Okay, it's Shahan. Well, did I say it's Shahan? I thought you corrected me the other way, Les. Okay, Shahan. Thank you. God help me with this. But to support what he was saying, doesn't that like make the department head like feel a little bit useless? If Pastor Schaller were doing that all the time, someone like Pastor Taggart is going to say, "What do you need me for?" You know what I'm saying? You don't need my counsel. You can do this stuff. What am I doing here? If you just need someone to count the money, you don't need me. And I would go find something else to do. Or I might really feel called. I want to be so much of a part that I would do it. But it's like that's a very real possibility. You know, which is why I'm kind of training you to manage in a certain way, because you want to get the best and brightest, and you want to keep them happy and gather what they have to offer. And we'll talk about this. Maybe I've missed this, but if I'm just sitting there in my chair making decisions across the property, then like I am limited to myself. What's in my brain is all the knowledge I have, and I want to get the knowledge that's in everybody's brain.
that someone goes to Pastor Schaller and says that this employee is living in sin, so they don't want to uncover the whole situation.
Right.
So he just makes the decision by himself. And
yeah, but even in that case, he's going to be doctrinal. Like, I can't go to him with an accusation. It's like the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. There's a biblical order that we exercise here. Like, who's saying this? And we might call the person in, is this happening? And if they say, no, this is not happening, and we don't have eyewitness accounts, it's over. And that's why people get away with stuff all the time. Because we can't prove it, and it happens. We're not police officers. We don't care to do that. So we misuse information to gain power, to damage or demean somebody, to make myself indispensable. Okay? I know stuff that nobody else knows. The classic example of this is your IT guy, right? You hire someone, you pay him a big salary, he comes in and writes some software for you, but he writes it in such a way that nobody else can figure it out, and you know that if you fire him, you're going to have to start all over again, Where's this code that I paid for? I'm not giving it to you, He takes the CD or whatever and goes home and says, I'm not giving it to you, And then you got to take him to court to try and get it, and then and that's like the classic case of making yourself indispensable. But people do this, Why are you doing it this way? You got to trust me. I know what I'm doing, How come you can't do it this way? If you did my job every day, you would know why, Come and do my job for a month, and then I can answer that question for you. That type of conversation, and people will, in the course of your career, if you're managing, you will get these types of responses, and this is someone misusing information to make themselves indispensable. Okay? They do it to influence outcomes, which we talked about. We do it so that they can own the decision-making, which is very similar to what I just said about making myself indispensable. Now, another way I can use or misuse information, and I kind of gave the example with the offerings that are now published in a shared Google Doc. I make myself the middleman, you know what I'm saying? So the only way someone can get information is getting it from me. I put myself into that location, and try and guard that relationship. That's a misuse of information. And then finally, I think we talked about this before. It's not a misuse, but we just want to be careful in terms of like carelessness, what we talk about, And there's things that interest us. There's things that we're, but we can walk around and just slip of the tongue. So we kind of want to have really this guard over our mouth. But in the everybody here most likely has seen this happen, because all of you have worked in businesses, you've seen this happen. You can be tempted to do it. Yeah, there's some decision making that I don't care. There's certain people that I don't need to share everything that's going on because I don't need them involved with the decision making process. But I wanted to get Richard Shepard back up here with the microphone. And there were a couple things he talked about between classes. He talked about this confidentiality. There's the job that you have. So come on up here, and so the camera can see you. And then we also talked about this being led by God thing, and I want to bring that up again. So we'll spend some. Go with your job situation first, because it'll be very helpful.
Everybody hear me? Okay, where I work, I'm a youth advocate for a nonprofit organization, and I have maybe 14 or 15 youth on my caseload. So information gets passed at times, but unless I sign a release form for the youth and have either their signature on it or their parent's signature, I'm not even allowed to receive information from that youth, because sometimes there's medical issues, there's drug treatment and things of that nature. And according to the policy of the place where I work, I can't even receive it unless I have this form filled out. And the other, I guess that illustration from a body member here, actually, is that what you? Okay. It was some years ago, one of my sports club kids was in the hospital, and the nurse came to me and she was talking to me about it, and she mentioned that he was in the hospital. So not thinking, I asked, okay, what was wrong with it? And she said, I can't tell you that. I just can't. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, this is one of my youth. I should be able to. But really, the HIPAA laws in the state of Maryland, she can't disclose that information. So I was really glad that she held her tongue in that instance. Even knowing me for so many years and having a high respect for me, she still said, no, I cannot tell you that. She could actually lose her job and be disgraced from her profession for a long time. So,
yeah, so that's like the level of integrity we want to be operating at. Like, what am I communicating? What am I hearing? Remember, Pastor Stevens, not even one sentence, not even one, in terms of hearing an evil report about somebody. But I want to give another illustration. This is like so good. Let's go back to the illustration that I gave you. We call Greater Grace Christian Academy. We can't get the information. And then someone says to me, oh, Jen's having a bad day. That's why you didn't get it, And just think about that. Think about that. Stay with me on this and just ponder it, because I've got people that do this to me in my job. People that I work with that do this to me. And it's like, okay, so let me get this right. Just help me with this now. Because of information you know about this person, okay, you know information about this person, so you're instructing me how I got to handle this person because of what you know about them. Well, thank you very much. That's like very helpful to me. So for the rest of my life, it's like, because you are so sensitive to people and know what's going on in their lives, I'm going to come to you before I make any management decisions now on, because of this great deep knowledge that you have about these people. Now, if it's Pastor Schaller, yes, that's his job. But somebody else coming in and using that, like to manipulate me, or use whatever word you want to use, but you're going to try and direct me how I'm going to handle that person. See how it goes? How information gets misused, and why it's like, this can be like very, very serious. I'm not saying you have to make it a huge offense or issue anytime it happens, but this is what happens in organizations. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's not right. It can become evil. It's natural. We are all this way. We are all this way. And certainly as a manager, there's people in my department, they're having, bad days or whatever. And sometimes of course, the people that work for us are like, so I don't hire those people. And we'll talk about that later. I hire people that are the same every day. I always know what I'm going to get in my office because people are amazing. But sure, I'm sensitive, and I do know stuff is happening. If someone's sick or tired, I'm going to leave them alone, and that's part of life. But you understand the distinction I'm making, where people go beyond that and into something else. Now, not sharing information, okay, hanging on to information because I do not want people questioning the decisions I'm going to make, you know? Oh, I know certain things about this situation, you know? Oh, if you knew this department, you'd understand why I'm handling it this way. Well, what do you know? I mean, you got to call people's bluffs sometimes. Well, what is it? Tell me. Well, I can't tell you. Well, then I can't receive. I mean, you can't tell me. I mean, come on now. Why can you not tell me all this stuff I need to know to do my job? You know. So people will use this to make it so that their decision making is not questioned. Now, why would I not want my decision making questioned? Help me with that. Why would I not want someone to question my decisions? Insecurity, okay? If there's one word that we learned in this course, it's what Mrs. Loughborough just said brilliantly. Insecurity, okay? I am insecure, and therefore I do not want my decision-making questioned. And that was another exchange that Mr. Shepard and I had between classes where we were talking about this statement. We were just talking a little bit about, you know, being led by God. And that's a statement that can be used. Oh, you know, like God led me to do this. And so it's like why? Is that something I really ever want to hear from anybody? Sometimes yes. Okay, and when do I use that statement, God led me? When I have no other explanation. You know, why are you going to go visit this person? I just believe God's leading me. Okay, now the person who says to me, why are you going to visit them? What they're really asking me is, you know, is there something that you know about their life, some situation that needs, you know, your help recovering? Is that why you're going? And I say back to them, no, I'm just being led by God to go. I want to go visit them and spend some time with them. That's a good use of the statement. And in fact, sometimes I'm going to use that statement when someone's trying to pry information out of me that I don't want to give. Like I know someone's, you know, marriage is in trouble, and I'm going to go visit these people. What are you going to go visit them for? Just led by God, you know. And I'm not going to say I'm going because I know they're having marital problems. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to use that statement in a sense to avoid giving information I don't want to give. But the real point I'm talking about now is when people carelessly use that statement, and in a sense, you know, God led me to do this, that at that point when someone says that, it's like, okay, the conversation just ended. What else is there to talk about? You know, so I'm going to interact with you about this decision. God's leading me to go on the mission field to, you know, Alaska or something. Great, I'll be praying for you. You know, but there's nothing to talk about. How can I talk about that decision with you? You know, you just told me God led you. What is there to talk about? You know, and you'll hear this from Pastor Shabeli sometimes. You know, people coming in, I'm going to such and such a place. Okay, what are you talking to me for? God sends you, go. You know, but what I was sharing with Richard is, I'm not saying this is a law, but I think it's a good principle. Is that, you know, true leading from God is really never divorced or never separate from practical, from wisdom. You know. And that if I'm truly being led by God, I ought to be able to hold that decision up to people around me, have them question it, have them make comments, have them, you know, maybe paint certain scenarios and give me certain considerations. And if my decision cannot stand up to that, it's like, thank God for those people to stop me from doing something where I thought God was leading me, but maybe He's not. Right? The spirit of the prophets are subject to the prophets, right? I'm led to do something, but I can't go to Pastor Shalom and put it on the table and hear what he would have to say about it. I would want that. And it's the same thing in organizational decision making. I think that we should be doing this, you know. And if I can't put that in front of my team, number one, the people below me that are going to be actually doing the work, they're going to bear the brunt of it. If I can't put it in front of them, and I can't put it above the people, put it to the people above me, and have them check me on it or ask questions, then how can, you know, how can that be a good decision? You know what I'm saying? And very rarely, you know, Taya can attest. She's my witness in here. Very rarely do I make decisions in the finance office that are against the team. Once in a while, I think I've done it once this year. Like we're putting in that document management system. That I shoved that down everybody's throat. No one was on board that project. I convinced the people above me, so it's happening. It's like I had half of what I needed was there, you know. And Paul Nye was with me also, and I just think it's going to work. I think we're going to see the benefit of it. We're not there yet, but I think we will be. But it's going to be some hard work to get there. But that is rare that I do that. I just say this is the direction we're going, and 99 times out of 100, it's what do you think? And people give me stuff I need to make these decisions. And so in that sense, when I'm holding information, you know, about it, so that in not sharing it with people around me, that makes my decision-making process bulletproof. How come you're doing this? I'm led by God to do it. Is that all there is? Led by God. Okay. Do what God says. But actually, my wife's kind of unhappy right now. She'd like a change, you know. I'd like to get my children out of this situation, have them, okay, now we can have a conversation about that stuff. Now that makes sense. If your wife's unhappy, you got to do something about it because she's, you know, the most important part of your ministry, you know. You don't want to raise your children here, you want to raise them there. Let me give you some information. So-and-so did the same thing 10 years ago. The kids got sick and were unhappy. It didn't go that well. Those schools that you think are great schools are not so great. Just do what God leads you to do, but just be aware of this. It might not. Okay, that information is very, very helpful to me. Now I can make a decision with both eyes open on this, and it just changes everything. So that's, you know, really that's all this course is about. It's just talk to people. You know what I'm saying? And find out what they're thinking, and use their wisdom in how we operate within the organization. But don't be weird with decision making, like God spoke to me last night. I mean, that may happen. But even when I'm going to share this story with you. Like in terms of me, like hearing an audible voice from God, never in my life. And hearing a strong impression on my heart, like 4 or 5 times in my life. It's very rare this has happened. And even when it's happened, it wasn't so much like God telling me what to do. It was more like God telling me what was going to happen. And even if I didn't obey, it was going to happen anyway. You know what I'm saying? And this was, I'm going to tell you these things because I just think you might like it for 2 reasons. Number one, is how God worked in my life and how He moved me, but also just how rare it is. And you may have a different experience in your life. You may hear God telling you things more often than Peter Taggart does. God bless you, do what God tells you to do, but it's just like rare. And 99% of my decisions like the Bible, and I think this is the right thing to do, and it seems, and we go in that direction, and God seems to hold it all together somehow. But I was sitting in I told you this, the best job I ever had. I told you the story, right? I was working in Springfield. Yeah, okay, thanks. Someone's a little positive reinforcement chats with me. And 2 years later, I'm sitting in my office there, 1.5 years later, 1 3/4 years. It was in the spring. And it was like I was sitting in my office, and it's like, oh my God, if I don't get out of here, God's going to kill me. It was not quite like that, but just like this thing came over me. I cannot be here. And now I didn't walk out the door that day, but through a process. That was probably February. In that summer, the boss made a decision. I was gone. And God, best job I ever had. God moved me out of that. I wasn't happy there. I told you the meetings I endured every week, boss swearing and all this. Crazy. This is why do we want to do this? Unhappy people doing it for the paycheck. It was just awful. So I left there, and I didn't even. It was so strange. So I left that place, and it was like I was totally at peace with God, but it's like I had nothing to say. I could not even comment on what was happening to me. So I go home that night. I don't even tell my wife. And so the next day I'm at the church, and Pastor Stambovsky says, aren't you going to work today? And I go, no, I work for you now, you know. Oh, great. And that was it. He just put me to work. And then like a couple days later, my wife says to me, what about that job you had where you went to Springfield every day? Oh, I don't have that job anymore. And that was like the end of it, you know, and we starved to death, and it was like awesome, you know what I'm saying? If someone gave me a car, and it was like amazing during that time. So that was just like one thing. And then it's 1998. I'm in the Berkshires. I'm like very happy there. Just working with Pastor Stambowski was awesome. It's just like amazing. A great time in my life. I'm just very, very thankful, and he really helped me in my life. And it's 1998, and it's summertime, and it's like not an audible voice, but just a impression on my heart, like next summer you're going to be in Baltimore. And it's like, whoa, where did that come from? It wasn't even like I was looking or like I was praying. It was just like, it was like amazing, you know. And I didn't do anything about it, but just through a series of circumstances, next summer we moved. You know, I came down for convention and never went back, and the rest is history. And then, I'll just give you one more thing in terms of, you know, God really. I'm like so confident that God has us here, and He moved us, and showed Himself capable of moving me when He needs to. It's not like I got to be like wondering every day what's going on, because God has shown Himself faithful to do what He needs to do. So it's like in summer of '98. It's like next summer you're going to be in Baltimore. Whoa. What was that? Okay, I'll think about that. Thank you. And then that spring, winter spring, like 99, like February, March, somewhere in there, I was the youth pastor in Lee. We had a great time. It was just a great season in my life, and there's still people around that'll talk about that. Dave LaFlame can talk to you about it. It was just like an amazing, good time in my life. But I'm driving back. I got like my pickup truck, I got a load of kids in the back, driving back from Hartford, Connecticut, and it's like, this is just fact. It's like, you are no longer the youth pastor. I'm like, whoa, okay, so like God just fired me here, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, but that was like amazing. But maybe I needed that from God, because I was like so attached. That ministry is so awesome that God knew He had to really speak to me that way, so I would know, and I could just leave it behind and move on to the next thing that God had for me, you know. But just so you know, when I moved to Baltimore, it was not to get a staff job. It was just, I was cold turkey. I was like everybody else. I moved to Baltimore with a car with no air conditioning, no job, no nothing. It was like very, very difficult for some years there just to get the whole thing cranking along. And we starved to death for a long, long time. And now we can actually buy a bag of rice once in a while. So thank God for that. So anyway, we'll stop right there, and we'll pick up at, I think, at 8:13.